Hello everybody, welcome into our latest live video. Today it is the 20th of July 2025. It's Sunday and today is our Friday broadcast on a Sunday. Yeah, we had other things going on Friday, and as a result we had to postpone today's build. Also, I was waiting on this part right here, which we're going to talk about here in just a moment. I want to say a shout out and thank you to our good friends Buster and Luke Greenia, who had contributed just prior to the show starting. Thank you to Buster for the Amazon gift card, and of course Luke Greenia for the PayPal contribution. And also, we had a couple packages arrive in the mail from our friend Buster out there in Scotland. One is a book on the photographic journey of Scotland, which, as I continue to learn more about Scotland, well, this one's just pictures, which just looks stunning. Like, no people. Look, there's no people. Sign me up. And this is a little book on Edinburgh. And, oh, I guess it's another picture book. Well, these will be a quick read. I think he's trying to wet my whistle to get over to Scotland and get away from the huge, massive crowds of people and congestion and traffic here in the big cities in the USA. And, oh, job done. I'm ready. I also saw that Buster sent me the Encyclopedia of Starfighters. I'm a big Star Wars nut. So this is really somebody who knows me well would know to get me this book. I'm gonna fact check. Actually, there are some vehicles in here I've never seen before, but you know, when you're a Star Wars nerd, you look for the facts. And this book is the encyclopedia, so there you go. So a shout out and thank you to Buster. That was very kind of you, and certainly appreciate you, and can't thank you enough for that. I don't know what the occasion was, but it's every day's Christmas with Busters around. Let me set these aside for now because I need all this room here to talk about what we're doing today and how we got here. So give me just a second. I got to find a place to put these. I'm running out of room here. I'm going to have to do something about this. Essentially, we tried building a budget build about 3 or 4 weeks ago with a unique case I hadn't seen before. And you're trying to keep it under $800 using a Ryzen 5 9600X. It's under $200 for that CPU with a mini ITX board, and I was going to use one of the mini ITX cases I've got laying around brand new in a box. And then and I thought, well, let me just see if there's a better case. It still keeps it under budget. I found this G.SKILL case. I didn't even know G.SKILL made cases, and that turned out to be just a mess. The more I got into it, the more I disliked it. I ended up disassembling everything and returning the G.SKILL case, and was wondering, where do I go from here? You know, trying to figure out. I started a project, just something inexpensive, something that many people could follow along with that would be affordable, but mini ITX, which I do not recommend because they are difficult to work on, very confined spaces and very limited for upgrades. I just rather get a mini PC because that'll still be cheaper, a mini PC. So I started looking at some options for cases, and I stumbled upon this Thermaltake case, the TR100, in a matcha, I think it's a matcha green color, which is, I wouldn't call that green. Whoopsie, there goes the most expensive part. I would call this almost a green tinted gray. But they have the whole thing matching with a cooler. And I thought, if I'm gonna put a big cooler on this, which was the same issue I had with the other build, that 9600X that we've got in here, it doesn't need a real big cooler like that. It's just there primarily for looks. And with this case, we don't have any case window, but we do have a lot of ventilation, big holes, so you will see RGB shining through there. So I thought, okay, I want everything to match. So Thermaltake sells the case with the matching cooler that's meant to go in this case with the same paint scheme. And then they also sell, I guess what's in the box is a different top that you can switch out, like we've seen with other Thermaltake cases, where you can add the little Thermaltake LCD screen. So then my next thought was, okay, that's an awfully nice case and cooler for such a low-end CPU. So I reevaluated and thought, this whole project's going to change. One of the issues we have here in Studio C is we're running out of room. So the big streaming computer that I'm making these videos on, it's a big red and black AMD case. You can see it in all the Studio B stuff we did last year. And there's really nowhere for me to put it. And I thought, you know, I could put a really nice high-end CPU in here. I've already got the nice power supply, the whole power supply fiasco with the G.SKILL. And not G.SKILL's fault, by the way, well, sort of. We had some bad power supplies that just didn't work, and then we had other power supplies where the cables didn't quite reach. Then I got a nicer power supply, and I thought, basically the budget build was getting more and more expensive as I was trying to work around some of the shortcomings of the case. Between the cooler costing more, power supply, we were on the 5th power supply. And I thought, at this point, I could go much, much higher up. If I've got to get a cooler like this, and I want something different than I've already done before. I mean, something unique, something we haven't already covered. So I looked online to see what's the greatest, highest-end AMD CPU on the market today. And that's what just fell off the table. Here it is. This, if I bring it up to the camera, you can see it nice and close here. Is the AMD Ryzen 9 9950 X3D. And as you can see, there's no cooler enclosed. And this is a $700 processor. This is as high up as you can go on an AM5. You can't go right now, July 20th, 2025, you can't go any higher than this. So, okay, well, if I'm going to do that, then the RAM I had put in here, it's not going to cut it. And the SSD I put in here isn't going to cut it. The folks over at Orico sent us their latest, the IG740 series, their professional end of NVMe drive. It's Gen 4, and it's a high endurance industrial, well, they're promoting it as an industry grade drive, 7,400 megabytes per second. And I thought, okay, then I just need to do something with the RAM, because we went from a budget build to the exact opposite. But with the idea being, when we're done, I'll just simply move the streaming capture card out of the streaming computer, plug it in here, because we only have one slot, and I need to use that for the 4-port HDMI capture. And then we got a new streamer that'll be a lot easier to move around, a lot lighter weight, won't take up as much room, and it still looks really unique. It's very different. And, you know, we pulled the OLOY RAM out of there, and I was just looking through some RAM that we had used previously that didn't work for us. This G.SKILL Ripjaws 5 is 48 gigs. It's 2 sticks of 24. And we tried this, I think, initially on the ProArt build, and we had some compatibility issues. And if you remember, we had ordered another set of RAM, and that also didn't work. After running memtest, we found the first set of RAM that we received was defective, and we returned it for a refund. The second set of RAM passes memtest, but the machine still wouldn't boot to it. So I think this RAM is still good. In fact, I don't think it ever was bad, but I think there was a compatibility issue with that motherboard. So it was put away for a project like this. Now, of course, if we still have problems with this RAM today, it's got a lifetime warranty on it, I'm pretty sure. And so even though it's too late for me to return it, I can always exchange it. So we're just kind of getting a heads up and awareness on this. And then this is the Thermaltake, the cooler here. I'm sorry, not the cooler. This is the LCD screen. And yeah, we're going to show all that off. I'll set that there for now. And let's look at the parts today. If I go over to Amazon, let me jump over here. I want to show you a little bit more detail about the case and such. So with the case, it's a little bit more money than the G.SKILL. I think the G.SKILL was $139 when we bought it. which is a little bit expensive for a budget build, but really that was the most, well, the CPU was like $180. So those two parts were the most expensive on the budget build. This one's not much more than that. And Thermaltake has always done a really good job with pricing their cases. I think they, they don't sponsor us at all. They never have. I don't even think they know who I am. But I have a lot of their cases because they're so unique in their design, and they offer them in so many different colors that, I find that appealing. So let me jump over here to the Amazon page. And here is the case we bought, the Thermaltake TR100 small form factor chassis. And matcha green is the color. You can see it holds a full-size graphics card, but we need that slot for our capture card instead of a video card. There's the back of it there. And if we go over to the next tab over, this is the little LCD display that can be added optionally, which if you look at the case again, there's some pictures with the LCD screen on it right there. So we're going to add that. I mean, why not? We're going all in on this. Then over here, that's the Ryzen 9 9950X3D processor. It's an MSRP of $699, and when it first came out, people were selling them for $800. So I think a pretty good price at $650, although with sales tax, it comes out to about $700, a little over $700 for us here in Phoenix. The next tab over, that's our Thermaltake TH280. That's a 280 millimeter liquid cooler with RGB, and it is designed for this case. Well, it's designed for a lot of Thermaltake cases, including the one pictured here, which we've also built in. And then if we go over to this tab, we see the GAMEMAX GS series 650 watt power supply. I bought this because it was fully modular, initially trying to resolve the power length, the cable length of the power cables on that G.SKILL build, then realized this was quickly no longer defining a budget build after all this trouble. And with a power supply that nice, I just felt like I should be building something where the parts are a little more equal to each other. So that's how we got here. Now the folks at Orico, as I mentioned, they sent us their IG740 NVMe drive to review it. And I thought, well, what better way to review it than we'll stick it in the streamer and we're going to use it every single time we stream. In fact, that's going to be the only drive we use. Now we have the 2 terabyte version, but they do make up to a 4 terabyte version. And to give you an idea of price, if we go over to Amazon, you can see what we're using is $125. It's got a built-in kind of a heatsink there here, but that should be able to be left on even though we're going to place it under the heatsink on the board. There is this one is a DIY heatsink kit. So we'll have to open the box, I don't know. But you can see the 4 terabyte drive is pretty high end at $230. Seems like a really good deal to me. And we've had really good luck with their drives. We haven't had any complaints. Our friend Mitch Morrison installed one into his machine, a different model, but from the same manufacturer. He's got no complaints. Well, let's see, what else can I tell you? What's the warranty on this? Does it say? Got a 1200, well, the 4 terabyte drive has a 1200 terabytes written warranty. So that's not the lifespan. People often confuse this number with the expected life expectancy. This is warranty. So most of them can go 3 to 4 times this without a problem, even beyond that. More than likely your NVMe drive is going to outlive you, and you will replace it because it's either too small of a capacity or too slow of a drive compared to what will be available in the years ahead. So, you always have a backup regardless, but usually NVMe drives have a 5-year warranty. It's pretty industry standard. I'm just looking to see if that matches the industry standard. There's a 7400 on the right, 7400 on the sequential read, 6500 on sequential writes. And it's really intended to take a beating. Now, it does kind of crack me up, the fascinations of the viewers on YouTube overall that seem to be hung up on this idea that they need industry level equipment, which, I don't really think they understand what they're buying, to be honest. I I know a lot of people, for example, that have scanners. Maybe it's built into their printer, or they have a printer. They might have multiple printers in their house. That's pretty common. But, well, people want to have all this industrial grade equipment. You very rarely will ever see anybody with a full-size photocopier machine, you know, an $80,000 thing on wheels that does photocopying, faxing, printing, can spew out, you know, 100 pages a minute. But when you walk into an office, you'd be surprised if you didn't see one. And I just find it a little interesting of the hypocrisy of a lot of consumers, where they think they need this high-end stuff and they buy equipment that is difficult to maintain and is much more than they'll ever use, and they spend a lot of money for it, and then they go and boast about it. I think if you were boasting to me that you had a Xerox machine inside your house, a full-size office Xerox machine, I wouldn't be jealous of you. I would just think, wow, that just sounds terrible. Why would you do that to yourself? But a lot of the stuff, you know, it starts with offices. It starts with industry. The Xerox machine came first. Eventually, they were able to break it down to just the scanner component that the consumers can use. And look, if you've got the money and you've got that sort of attitude that you feel like, despite not having any logical, practical reason for owning a Xerox full-size, you know, 1,200-pound Xerox copy machine in your home, you're not doing anything illegal by buying it. You could buy a school bus too, and just drive yourself around town in it. I just think it's a profoundly foolish waste of money. Now, that's just my opinion. I'm not telling you you can't do it, but it stretches forward or it reaches forward or branches off into all this other office equipment that people seem to think they need. Again, I'm not stopping you from it, but like, having the professional version of Windows is for offices, period. There's a home version and there's a professional version. And a lot of times when people email with support questions, especially with networking and things, they're hung up with Windows 10 Pro or Windows 11 Pro security settings that they can't seem to figure out, and they curse it out. You're not supposed to be running that at home. The professional version is for professionals. The home version, who do they make that for? But there are people like, well, I need to have the professional features at home. Really? What's your job? Oh no, I don't work. I'm retired. Okay. So, you know, when people go, how do I upgrade my Windows Home to Pro? I'm like, why? Are you suddenly going to need to log into a domain at your office? Where's your cubicle? What floor of the building are you on? Oh no, it's just for my home. Look, I realize there are some folks out there who will to go out of their way to reach to explain why they need that. And I'm not going to tell you you don't need it. You spend your money however you want. I'm telling you, in a professional office environment, running Windows 10 or Windows 11 Home in an office is unacceptable. If you're a home user and you feel like you need the Pro version, you're free to go buy it. But you're also undertaking a lot more complexity with regards to, well, I need the virtual machines and I need the sandboxing and I need okay, you don't represent a typical home user, number one. And number two, I don't expect you to be asking me any questions because you're clearly so capable that you need that kind of complexity. Then I don't expect you to be asking me any questions on how to do anything with it. Because if you'd have gotten the home version that you were supposed to, you wouldn't be having any of the issues in most cases. So as a tech, this really gets under my skin that I see people overbuying, making their life more complicated, spending more money than they need to spend, and then they get themselves in a technical issue that they can't resolve because they felt like everything else wasn't good enough for them, but bought so much they don't know how to use it properly, which ends up with questions. Now, we're welcome to take your question. You're always welcome to email us with questions. But I want you to know ahead of time. I want you to see the future. And before you make the decision of, do I really need this full-size Xerox copy machine in my house? What's the cost of maintenance and electricity and troubleshooting that you're going to have with a piece of equipment that complex versus don't I just need an all-in-one printer with a scanner on it? It's your decision to make. and we're always happy to help you resolve problems regardless. But I can tell you, Windows home users do not typically have the same issues with their computer as Windows Pro users. And while offices must have the Pro version, home users don't need it. There's a reason why these two versions exist, and I don't know what's going through people's minds. You might as well buy a limousine. Well, it's bigger and it's more expensive, so why would I want a little Buick when I can have a full-size limousine? Well, are you chauffeuring people? No. Are you ever going to? No. So you're going to take on the added maintenance, the added, complexity of this limousine where you got a lot more to clean, you got to figure out how to park it, certain kinds of registration you got to pay for. It's difficult. You can't take it down some streets. It can't turn on. It's complicated to drive. If you find that to be fun and that's how you want to spend your money, go right for it. But you will find only on the internet a propensity of end users who overcomplicate and overspend and then tell other people they should do the same, or they inspire other people who otherwise wouldn't have. So I'm telling the other people, inoculate yourself from this. It's like it's a perspective that simply doesn't, it's not a sustainable perspective for most people. It's usually you're really, really thrilled and happy when you buy it, and then you're going to be really, really happy again when you sell it. You finally rid yourself of the thing you should have never bought to begin with. And I see this over and over and over again, where people are so fed up that the elation that they get when they sell it is almost equal to or greater than the elation they felt when they bought it. Look, we all need our own experiences, and if you need to do that, you go right ahead, but just be prepared. I know what's coming. All right, so we got a little off track there, but I just wanted to emphasize how ridiculously absurd it would be for you to have a full-size Xerox machine in your house. And in any other office equipment, it's equally as absurd. All right, that's just from my perspective. You're welcome to disagree. Hello to everybody joining us in our chat room. Hello to all of our members. I see we've got Dazzle555 in there, along with 3D Everything and Dwayne Blackwelder. Paul Vircher says hello. There's Morton, Blue Greenia, and Thomas Mac T saying hello. Gregory Howard. Mark Gaines says hello, along with Frank Jimmy. And if I scroll up to the top, oh, Paul Vircher just became a supporter. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for joining our tech club. Katrina H. renews membership. Right on. Welcome back to Katrina. Eugene Ildago says hello, and Eddie Casanova, Dustin Fuller, and David Graham all joining us. And let's see. Mark Gaines with a 10-pound super chat. Thank you, Mark. He says hello, Carey, Mara, and everyone in the chat. Mark joins us from Northern Ireland. Tom Jackson joins us and contributes with $7.77, he says, because you deserve it. Well, thank you, Tom. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Hope everyone's having a great Sunday. Richard DeFries joins us and says hello. Did I say 3D Everything already? Ben Laird joins us from Scotland. And there's our friend Buster, of course. Andy W6AD says hello. A $1 super chat from our friend Jose Lopez. Thank you, Jose. Charlie Purdy is now a member for 13 months. Right on. Thank you for renewing membership, Charlie. Bruins44 joins us from North Carolina. Gilberto Colazzo says hello. Planet Cryos with a $2 super chat. He says $2 not to talk about me. Too late. Welcome into Planet Cryos. Did I catch everybody? I think I caught everybody in there. Just double checking. If I missed you, you just shout out, hey, you missed me. Frankie B is joining us along with Jamie McGregor and John Lewis. And John Lewis joins us from Brazil. Paul M joins us. He said, what happened to membership badges? That's the number you see next to your name. That is your membership badge. Okay, so part of the downside of this build is I'm going to be left over with a fantastic CPU here, the 9600X. So what I'll do, and you're already going to know what I'm going to do, that this 9600X is going to go on a shelf for a future build. And it may not be a mini ITX. It could be full-size ATX, micro ATX, but at some point, we will get back to doing a proper budget build utilizing the 9600X, because that's really your sweet spot, especially if you're into gaming at all. You're going to want to lean on the AMD side. But also, if you're doing business-related things, it's not like AMD can't do that. And for the price of the CPU, it's probably the best buy out there, unless you must have Intel, which is fine. Intel's got an equivalent. They're priced pretty similarly. Because I'm not talking to people, generally speaking, the majority of you are home users and not business people. A lot of the home use stuff, a lot of the YouTube content is all going to be leaning on towards AMD, because people are just sitting at home wanting to play with their computers. And if you're a player, that's all well and good. AMD is more attuned for you. If you're in business, there may be actual restrictions and policies that preclude you from getting anything other than Intel. So there are different reasons for the different chips. And of course, many of the businesses could use AMD, and many of the home users can and do use Intel. But if I was sitting at home and I had no job to use my computer for, and my main issue was that I wanted to play games, or I simply wanted to stick it to Intel, then AMD is often what's the choice of many content creators here on YouTube. Intel right now, you know, they're not doing very well. I don't think their new CEO really has the spirit of Intel at heart. So we'll see how this plays out, but it's such a massive corporation. The scale of Intel is so huge and worldwide. Even if they tried to shut it down today, they wouldn't be able to wind it down for a couple of years before that would all shut down. So nothing's going to happen overnight. They have a lot of time to figure things out. Think of it like a giant train or a giant boat. You can't just turn on a dime, and it's not just going to suddenly stop on a dime either. It has to slow down, and then there are opportunities for other companies to step in and take it over, or to buy certain divisions to re-energize the company using any funding they get to go off on a direction, which, you know, we'll wait and see what Intel does, but they're strong in the race despite reading a lot of news items. The news is there to generate drama and make you click on it. And a lot of companies right now, in the economy that we're in, with everything happening in the world with tariffs and the wars, it's been quite difficult, not just for Intel, but Ford Motor Company and Nissan. And I mean, this just goes worldwide. Banks, everybody's hurting right now. And there are a few exceptions where companies are doing well, like NVIDIA, for example, is doing really well. Is that sustainable? You know, Bitcoin's through the roof. It's insanely at the highest price I think it's been ever in the history of Bitcoin. Is that sustainable? Is it going to continue to grow? I don't know. But the stuff, it always kind of shifts back and forth. And so when the seas get a little rough, there's a lot of people that want to jump on board the hate wagon and start beating them down and go, ha ha, that's what you get. They're not out. And everything can flip the other way to AMD as well. I mean, it could be that AMD does a bad product launch. Suddenly, you know, they tend to go tit for tat with regards to throwing punches at each other. AMD was down for years, many, many years, and then they bounced back. You wouldn't expect the same from Intel? Right now, the Intel chips, there's really nothing wrong with them. It's an image that they're having a problem with. So hopefully they'll get the right leadership to correct the image problem they've got. and get themselves back on track sooner rather than later. But they're not going anywhere for a long, long time. And there's a very good chance that they'll switch positions again with AMD, and Intel will become the leader, and then AMD will follow. And then AMD will come back and they'll become the leader. It's sort of like Coke and Pepsi, Ford and Chevy. You know, it's more of the same. So in any event, I wouldn't hesitate to buy either Intel or AMD. They're both solid, good working chips. And I wouldn't let the emotional standards of others define my practical and pragmatic reasoning for which I'm buying a chip. So for that, I just wanted to put that out there. Also, I usually save this for the end of the show, but I want to tell you about our friends over at SSD Keys. That's where I get my Windows and Office license keys. And they are, well, let me put it this way. If you call up your local computer repair shop, call up Geek Squad, call up somebody who builds computers, call Falcon Northwest or call Dell or HP. Ask them where they get their office and license keys from. You know what they're going to tell you? Try it and see. It is pretty much an industry secret with regards to, say you're running a restaurant. People want to know, where are you getting your food from? Who's supplying you with your bread? In most cases, they'll tell you they don't know, or they're not allowed to tell you. In most cases. If you went into a franchise restaurant, they would just tell you they buy it from the franchisor. And they're not allowed to really disclose. And not only if they did disclose it, you wouldn't be able to buy. You can't buy McDonald's French fries at the store. You never will. And you can't just go buy them from where McDonald's buys them. It's not for sale for you. Well, this is true with almost every industry. So when it comes to Windows and Office license keys, that small businesses like myself need to be competitive with the bigger manufacturers that make these great big deals with Microsoft. A lot of times we don't want to share that information because we don't want our competitors to get the same sources that we have. And then, you know, now it's harder for us to sell computers because now our competitor down the street, we've just given away where we're sourcing our goods from. So what stops them from buying their goods at the same place and then beating us on price? Maybe they're willing to take a little less profit. Maybe they don't have the overhead. Whatever the reason is. So it is very unusual for a professional business to disclose the source of their product. And I'm emphasizing that because I want you to understand, I don't make a commission off of the links. If you want to buy a licensed copy of Windows, paying the same price that I pay, using the same source that I use, I am voluntarily sharing this information with you. You can dismiss it if you want to, but in the back of your mind, you also want to plant a seed that when you get burned by buying some product key online from some shady seller, you will have wished you will have followed this, because instead of buying it twice, you'll find out you could have just bought it once and been done with it and saved a lot of money. So links below in our video notes are for SSD keys for Windows 10, Windows 11, Home and Pro, a lot of different versions of Microsoft Office. And they're already at great prices, especially compared to what Microsoft's MSRP is. If you enter the coupon code CAREY, you get 30% off. Do you know that when I buy Windows license codes and Office license codes, I have to enter my own product coupon code? I have to enter my own coupon code. And that price that comes up, that's the price I'm paying. So you understand why a content creator would perhaps take a deal with a company and then they don't care if the company's legit or not. They're getting paid. It's a pretty common attitude. You know, they'll say stuff like, well, I'm not making you buy it. You know, if they turn out to be a ripoff, that's not my problem. That's between you and them. I'm not endorsing it. I'm just sitting here getting paid to promote it. I don't do that. If it's something I won't sell my customers, it's something I won't promote to you guys. And they have 6 months of free support there. And you can just save a ton of money. If you want to save money and get a legitimate, legal product key, there you go. If you want to take your chances with somebody else, you go right ahead. All right, so our thanks to the friends at SSD Key who provide that coupon code to share with you. And we hope that if you need a product key, you'll take advantage of it so you don't have to roll the dice and hope things work out okay. Of course, if there's any issue that you've ever had with SSD keys or are going to have, you let them know, they'll fix it. If in some weird occurrence they don't fix it, you let us know. We'll guarantee we fix it. So what other content creator makes that guarantee? That's how strongly I believe in them. Also, my whole business kind of relies on providing everything done right. You know, I have to be able to sell my actual business clients legal copies of software. Some of my clients are lawyers. Can you imagine what the consequences would be if I'm just trying to buy the cheapest product key online and it's not legit and they get audited? It's going to be the end of my business. All right, now we had previously updated the BIOS on this motherboard when we initially built it. And this is an important step because if we take this processor that just came out, this 9950X3D, and we just pop it into a board, it may not recognize it. So the board will turn on and then just nothing happens. The challenge we've got today is it's also possible if this RAM is not working correctly that the board will turn on and nothing happens. And then you go, well, what's the problem? Well, in this case, we could have two problems. We could have incompatible or damaged RAM, and we could have a BIOS that's out of date that doesn't see the latest, most recently the most recently released CPU from AMD from a motherboard that was made long before the CPU was created. So how does the motherboard know it exists? Well, you make sure you have the latest BIOS. Well, how do you do that? Some boards have a BIOS flashback button. Other times you just use an older CPU, drop it in there, flash your BIOS, and then take it back out. What if you don't have an older CPU? Well, at that point, you might need to call the company for support and see what they can do to help you. The company of the motherboard would be the one you'd be calling at that. So today's challenge is really going to be about making sure that that Ryzen 9 is seen and that the RAM is seen and that we boot up. So we're going to do this first and make sure that this all works before we go and install it in the case. This also means we also need to take the NVMe drive out of here, which I've not done yet for a reason. I don't want to introduce too many new parts onto the build until we can get this thing turned back on again and know that we're okay to move forward. So with that, are we ready? Bruins44 wants to know if needing to use an older AMD processor to update a motherboard has been solved. Well, again, there is BIOS flashback, which is often a button in the back. And I don't know, this motherboard has the button right here with the circle around it. Let's see if I can go closer on camera 2. This board does support BIOS flashback. It's primarily an issue with AMD CPUs since the sockets aren't changing. If AMD did what Intel does and changes the socket every couple of years, you probably wouldn't need that BIOS flashback. If you bought a board that does not support BIOS flashback and it doesn't have a BIOS compatible, what that means is you bought an old motherboard and you improperly paired it with a brand new CPU. You understand? You took something that just came out and you want to drop it into something that came out a long time ago. Something that came out a long time ago doesn't have a crystal ball to know how to identify something that didn't exist when this was made. So how are you going to solve that? You buy a more recent motherboard. So for example, the board we've got here, this is the B850 chipset. But what if this was a B650? You understand what I'm saying? The older the board is, the more likely, if the board is older and the CPU is newer, that's where you're likely going to have the problem. You've mismatched your parts. If you're going to spend this kind of money on a CPU, then why would you go cheap on your board? It doesn't make any sense. If you already have a board and you're upgrading, well, then you've already got the chip to update to the BIOS, don't you? So if you've already got an older board and you say, look, Carey, AM5 is supposed to be upgradable. I'm supposed to be able to mismatch this if I want to. Right. So before you take your old CPU out, make sure you upgrade to the latest BIOS first. That's all. It's that easy. So either don't buy mismatched parts, or if you're going to, make sure you've got a BIOS flashback button. Or if you're upgrading, use the chip you've got that you're upgrading from to upgrade the BIOS first. Then it should recognize your new chip. Does that all make sense? So when you're asking if it's been solved, it's never been a problem. This is the same answer I would have given you 5 years ago, and I'm giving you the same answer today. There's no way that can change. It's not possible unless the people making the boards can see the future. There's no telling what AMD will come out with next. So just so you know, it's not as big of a deal. A lot of people have anxiety and fear and concerns over things that will never happen to them. The good news is rather than worry about it or even be concerned about it, like what would happen if, that may be fun daydreaming, but when something happens in reality and you actually do have a real issue and you want to know how to solve it, we are here to help you. We'll be happy to help you. So either way, what's the worst that'll happen? You have to ask for a little help? I see a lot of people asking for help who don't need it. They're asking for help for future problems they're worried about that they'll never have. It is another internet phenomenon where people want to know, what do I do if? Well, if that happens, then you reach out and ask for help. That's the best advice I can give you, because you can just stay up all night. When you step outside, there's a million things trying to kill you. You know what I mean? Like, you're just never going to go outside again. And as a result, if we just kind of put blinders on and limit our vision and our concerns to what's actually in reality facing us as challenges, there's no harm in asking for help. But we are not flooded with emails from people in that position. It very rarely happens. For every one person that asks for help with an actual issue, we have 9,000 people asking for help about a theoretical issue they've never had and never will have. After a while, if you can imagine yourself in my shoes, that gets really old. It's like, please. It's like calling the 911 emergency line every time you hear a strange noise. What about the people that are calling with actual issues? You know what I'm saying? Not that there's any harm in asking for your curiosity's sake, but there's so many people doing that right now over information that's completely useless to them because it will never affect you. If I'm wrong, then reach out to us. All right, that's all I'm trying to say. It gets a little frustrating sometimes. Now, as I mentioned in the prior video, when we were setting this board up, initially prepping it, we did the BIOS update, right? I always do that. So we should be good to go for just the CPU swap. Then the other thing is, I need to put the RAM in it and test wireless, but the downside is, how am I going to cool this? I mean, this is a high-end chip. It's going to high power consumption, high heat. And my feeling is, I think I'm just going to slap that Wraith cooler on it, and we're only going to keep it on for like 30 seconds to make sure it boots. As long as it boots, I'm not even going to put thermal compound on it. As long as it boots, we're good to go and we can continue with the build. I don't want to put everything in here and then find out there's an issue either with the RAM. It gets a little bit more difficult to work within the case. So we can figure this out outside of the case first. That'll make it easier to resolve any issues should we have any. I'm not trying to predict what issues we're going to have. All I'm doing is I'm sorting out, because I'm on a live video right now. By the way, if this wasn't a live video, I wouldn't care. Wouldn't matter if I built it or I didn't. But these videos often go 2-3 hours, sometimes 4 hours long. And if I don't have a plan in place for what I foresee as being a likely and probable issue I might have, I already am planning ahead so the video can keep moving. If I'm a home user just tinkering, there's no concern about time limits or trying to figure out a solution to something ahead of time when it's a problem I'm never going to have. So I share a different perspective simply because I'm making a live, unscripted, unrehearsed video, and I want to keep the video moving. I don't want to be stuck. I get stuck enough. on live video. When I'm stuck off camera, you guys never know. So there's no pressure. All right, let me get this CPU out of here. Let's get this one unboxed and let's get some work done. Paul M says, I've never seen a computer problem I couldn't solve. Well, like I said, if you had any questions or concerns, the community here will be glad to help. I'll be glad to help. Mara's glad to help. You can email us. You can go to our forums. It feels good to help other people. So when you're sitting there and you're not asking for help, you're denying us an opportunity to feel good about ourselves that we helped you. That's one way to think about it. This chip took over a week to arrive. I don't know why, and it's partly why we didn't have a video on Friday. This didn't come in on time. And my concern was, geez, I hope this thing isn't a counterfeit product. I've been hearing about a lot of counterfeit high-end AMD chips sold, even from Amazon, but not lately. That was maybe 8 weeks ago. But this looks legit as far as I can tell. AMD Ryzen 9 9950X3D. And we've got some documentation. And the box can go right in here. Just put the packing right back in the box. And now I can just gently set that right over there. Next, we'll pop this chip out like so. Some people have a lot of anxiety about taking a CPU out. They don't want to damage the pins. And when the retention lever is lifted, the CPU comes up. Therefore, it's not touching those pins underneath. But the minute you start pressing down on the CPU, if you press down on it, you're interacting with the pins and you can damage them. So the important thing is it's okay to set the CPU gently on the socket. And then when this lever comes down, that's pushing it down to make the connection. So if you're pushing down on the CPU when you're installing it or when you're removing it, that's how you damage your pins. But I have here, I went on Amazon and I bought these little suction cups that you'll often see stuck to refrigerators with little hangers attached to them. And I just take the suction cup and I set it down on top of the CPU, and the suction cup has a little nub on it, and I just lift it straight up. Then I grab the CPU by the edges. Slide the suction cup off. Don't pull it off. Slide it. You couldn't ask for anything any easier than that. Could you? Well, you could ask, but it wouldn't be reasonable. We'll just put that right there, and I'm done with these. This was the smallest amount I could buy. I think I'm set for a while. Yeah, so I'm always looking for ways to use items in my environment to solve technical problems that don't require specialty tools. And you can see our socket is beautiful in there. Everything looks great. And we'll take our brand new CPU. So you're not going to find that trick on any other YouTube channel because I'm the one who created it. I pride myself in coming up with practical solutions to common problems, and some are better than others. I'm not going to say they're always successful, but that one works out really well. Here's our new chip, and let's see, which way does this go in? It's going to go in, I think, like this. So notice how I'm holding it by the edges. Look at how close to the edge of my finger it is. So I can bring it down, and so the edge of my finger will touch the frame of the socket, and I'll set down one side into a corner, and then I'll let it go, and it'll just fall very gently into place. And you'll see I kind of grab the top of the edges here, and I just give it a little wiggle to make sure that it's fully seated. But I'm not pushing down. That's what this job is for. This comes down, and when we bring down the retention lever, it's going to push down the CPU and make contact with those pins below. Now I'm going to put the RAM in, and this is our G.SKILL Ripjaws DDR5. These are 24 gigs a piece. and I'll put in both of these. One goes here. I suppose I should start on the inside so you guys can see better. Just like that. Make sure we get it in the track, gentle. Should slide in nice and easy. Once it feels like it's in there and you verified everything's aligned, then with some downward force, we're going to push down one corner, then the other corner. Don't overthink it. Got to have my go faster sticker. I suppose just to keep the CPU safe, it would be best if we put it back in this little carrier. All about recycling. Look at that. That'll keep it safe on the shelf and dust free. Now, this documentation will go in the motherboard box that came with our CPU, and the other documentation that came with that CPU will also take out of the box, because that's where we placed it, and we'll keep it with the CPU for the budget build we end up doing in the future. So overall, pretty painless procedure. Now, I need to grab a power supply. I don't need to use the small form factor power supply. I just want to test this and see that it boots up. And of course, I need to put a heatsink on it. So let me jump back over to camera 1 real quick, and let me go grab that heatsink because I didn't think about that before I was doing this. So I'm going to just come over here. I know exactly where I placed it. This is the same heatsink we were using that did not fit in the G.SKILL case. This was part of our complexity of how our budget build was starting to get expensive. And one of the things I like about the CPU is that we don't have to screw it down. It's just got these latches. And this is great when you want something simple, especially in our case. So thermal compound absolutely helps and may even be necessary for sustainable use. But for us to just turn it on, we don't want to do that without a cooler because that would be foolish. This thing will hit 300 degrees Fahrenheit in seconds. This will help stave that off, at least for a short amount of time without thermal compound. And we don't intend to keep it on there any longer than that. And the reason I'm doing it is just out of sheer efficiency. I don't want to waste thermal compound and then have to clean it up just to turn around and put another cooler on it. But I also don't want to put the cooler on it, install it, and find out it's not working and have to take the whole thing back out again. So this is my comfortable middle, if you will. And if I raise this, which way does this go? We should be able to just seat this here. I mean, technically, this cooler is for an AM4 socket, but AMD kept the socket the same on AM4 and AM5. So if the cooler is sufficient, you're not going to have any fitment issues if it's enough cooler to cool whatever chip you've got. I don't want you to automatically assume that an AM4 cooler can't cool an AM5. However, this cooler cannot cool that chip with or without thermal compound. It's not enough. However, again, just as a temporary test, it'll be fine. We're not going to keep it on very long. I just need to grab a power supply. In fact, you know, I have the budget Apevia small form factor power supply right over here on a shelf. So let me grab it, and it's just smaller. It'd be easier for me to do. Bear with me for 1 second here as I try and figure out how to walk back through my pathway. It's like an electronic forest. All right. So this is the Apevia power supply we were using. What did I do with the new power supply? Wasn't it? I'm just realizing normally before the show I stack all the parts together that go with the build. So we got our screen, Motherboard box, everything's here. But the power supply I intend to use, where did that go? Hold on a second. Just realizing that now. It should have been with the rest of these parts. Oh, I see what I did. I see what I did. I have a stack of power supply inventory, and I moved it to my inventory. So I must have said, oh, I need to move that, saw a squirrel, and then forgot until just now. What can you do? You know? Just part of being Carey. It's a Carey thing, you wouldn't understand. Or maybe you would. All right, so this, sorry about that, I thought I had everything ready. This is the power supply we're going to be using, which is the one I showed you on the Amazon page. And I think we paid $70 for it. It wasn't $85, because quite frankly, at $85, you might as well pay the $90 or $99 for the big name brand. But this was the comfortable middle between the cheapest power supply and the most, not the most expensive, but you know, the standard name brand power supplies. They are right around $100. The cheap one we were buying was around 40, and this one landed right around 70, and I thought, that's perfect for us. And this is designed to host a external GPU, which again, I cannot put an external GPU and a capture card in this build. I only have one slot. So I've got to really think about what is it I really want to use if I'm going to use this as my new streaming computer. Okay. So we're going to do our test fire. That means we're going to plug in our 24-pin power connector. And the one everybody forgets, first-time builders always forget to plug in their 12-pin CPU power, and then they go, how come my system's not working? Do I have to update my BIOS? Is my RAM bad? Is my CPU not compatible? No, you have to give it power. People always overthink. Always, always, always overthink it. So try not to, and you'll probably get to your solution faster. Always check the easy things first. What have I forgotten is the question you ask yourself if it's not booting up. That's the best place to start, and that'll usually lead you to your solution faster. Once you've exhausted everything you could have forgotten, then it's time to move on to other possible things. Okay, so this is a power switch. I'm going to plug a power switch on, which goes where? Cannot tell. This board is so tiny. The writing is minuscule. Hello, Mara.
You have an email.
I have an email. Right on. Thank you. We'll check that here in just a minute as I get my big glasses on. I think that should be our power switch right there. Most people would probably just look at the motherboard documentation, but it's always the same on all motherboards. It's just a matter that on many ITX, they rotate the connector to a different side, but all the pins go in the same rows in the same order. And in this case, they put two identical sets of pins next to each other, one for USB and one for front panel switches and LEDs. And those are nearly identical, except the missing pin is on the other side. And I can't tell. I don't memorize which side the missing pin is on. And also, depending on if they rotate it back or forth, it's this is called overthinking. Okay. So let's give, let's see, HDMI, keyboard and mouse. Move that over. Let's move that over. HDMI. All I want to see is a power on self-test. You know, if it boots into Windows, that's fine. Then we'll shut it down and we can continue finishing the build. The cooler can come off. It's only going to be on just a couple, maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So, like I said, I would not keep this cooler on without thermal compound for anything other than the most minimal length of time, because it would make me nervous. I don't want to create a problem with the most expensive CPU that AMD sells for consumers before I've even had a chance to use it. Let's see, keyboard and a mouse. Right here. I mean, we can plug this into any USB port, it doesn't matter. If I can figure out, there it goes. I need a power cable for the power supply. This power supply has a switch on it. We switch it off for safety reasons. These cables, these go to the RGB and USB to control the fan. I just keep them with me because when we take this off, this little bag of cables goes with this if it were to be permanently deployed into a future build, which it may be, you know, on the upcoming budget build, which likely will be our next build, but probably not anytime soon. You know, these are very expensive, and right now people just aren't buying computers. I mean, I'd be interested to see the sales numbers on the consumer side for Dell, HP, Lenovo. They've got to be bad this year. Businesses are always buying computers. Nothing, if anything, business is buying more and more. But even a lot of businesses are struggling right now and are postponing. The only reason they are buying is primarily for the Windows 11, you know, because Windows 10 support is going to be ending without extended security updates. It just makes sense to just go ahead and go to Windows 11 now and be done with it. So businesses and consumers, again, two very different worlds, and a lot of what the consumers are using is thanks to businesses. Like I said, if you just think about Xerox machines, copy machines, they're massive. But without them, you wouldn't have your home scanner. That home scanner did not come first. Okay. All right, let me just take a look here. Look at it in the chat. Chris Johnson says hello. Our friend Buster said he's going in for a blood test tomorrow, checking on the, he's been fighting some cancer and winning, and so he just does follow-ups to make sure that he's still kicking cancer's butt. So we'll look forward to hearing back from Buster that I expect everything's going to be fine, but you never want to assume. You want to check that out as early as possible, catch it early. And I do believe that's why he's doing so well, as he caught it early. Let's see, what else? Michael Lavelle says hello. Phil Stodd joining us says hello. Welcome in, guys. David Graham says, are you going to use that cooler if you have to flash it? Well, as I mentioned at least twice, we already flashed it when we did this has been a 4-part build series for the budget build. So I might be talking too fast. I'll slow down. When we put the 9600X CPU in this, when we were building it, what do I always do on every build? So one of the first things I do, I update the BIOS. We literally updated the BIOS on this just a few weeks ago. This chip will already be in one of those latest BIOSes. Now, if we had built this a year ago, 2 years ago, then we would update the BIOS with this old chip first before we go any further to taking the chip out and replacing it. So to answer your question, no, that ship sailed. We won't have that problem. Okay, so just so we're clear. Let me turn the power supply on. I'm going to go to this HDMI capture port here. We're going to go to this button, and I will put camera 1 in a corner. And I want to set all this up because I don't want this on very long. I'm very much looking forward and expecting it to post, and I don't want to be wrong. Again, we could have, I'm not certain that this RAM is okay. I suspect it is. But there's only one way for me to tell you for sure, and that's to just try it. So here we go. Power's on. See all the LEDs going on here? Our first boot up. Might take a little bit longer than what would be considered normal, as it's retraining the RAM and retraining the CPU. And that's going to take, you know, upwards of 3 to 4 times longer to get us to a post screen. The good news is it likely wouldn't overheat the CPU at this stage, even if we left it on 5 or 10 minutes. Still not a good practice, but it's really when it boots up, and you certainly wouldn't want to run Cinebench or anything resource intensive on it. So this is all theory. Let's see what happens. And we have to give it enough time. We don't want to jump to any early conclusions and assuming anything's wrong yet. You need to allow it the time it needs to process. And 48 gigs of RAM is a lot of RAM. It's going to take longer for it to train that RAM. The more RAM you have, the longer it takes to train it. More than likely, if for any reason this does not post, my first suspicion is going to be the RAM because of our history with it. We don't have any history with the CPU, and our history with the motherboard is perfect. We don't have any issues with that. So hopefully, before too long, we're going to get some life out of this. It is plugged in, right? We're going to get some life out of this, I hope, in just a moment. It's a very anxiety-ridden process when you're dealing with expensive parts. For me, it's not a big deal usually. I don't care. But for something like this, where there's $700 on the CPU, with a cooler on it with no thermal compound, that I'm trying to not run very long, it does make me a little nervous. And you can always feel the cooler too if it starts to feel really hot. Yeah, and it is getting quite warm. So I'm just going to give it about another minute or so and see if we get any life out of it. And you know, I cannot stress to you how it's going to feel emotionally for you the first time you do this. But the important thing is you don't panic, don't freak out, and don't get in your own way. Give it ample time. Now the fan just cranked up. Something just happened right now. The fan cranked up and then it went back down again. So that usually indicates it's doing something. Now if the fan speed never changes, these little indicators, that fan is cranked up again. Look how long that took. Did anybody time that? So obviously it detected our CPU fine, because we did have the latest BIOS put on it from the last time when we initialized this. And it boots into Windows fine. That means it sees our CPU and it sees our RAM. Now it won't take that long to boot up anymore. It's always just that first time. Now that fan's really cranking up, and that means that CPU is running hot. And of course, without any thermal compound and that being an inadequate CPU, as I mentioned, or inadequate CPU cooler, we don't want to run it like this very long. So I'm just going to simply go to my full screen over here so I can see the start button, because it's all in little tiny 4K mode. And we're going to shut it down. Well, I was going to shut it down, and it's apparently loading a driver or something. Let me do that one more time. Full screen. Okay. That is nerve-wracking. You go through those first power on initializations. Let's shut this down. And we'll go full screen on camera 1. And we'll just wait for this to shut off. So that's our green light. RAM is working, CPU is identified. This cooler is going to come off. Let's give it a minute to cool back down. And while we're letting that cool back down, because I don't want to touch it, it's going to be hot. We can just use this time to go ahead and start prepping things, and we need to do this all anyway. Take the USB dongle out for the keyboard and mouse. We can set that aside. It'll be a while before we need these again. Anybody time that from the time I turned it on before it posted, how many minutes that was? Jason H88 said it was 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Was it me, or did it feel like 6 minutes? Like it felt like a long time. So 3 minutes, and if we had 128 gigs of RAM, you could double that. Seriously, you could seriously be waiting 5 to 6 minutes if you add that much RAM to your system. All these people that think they're making their system faster by adding more RAM are still living in the 1990s. Not that that's a bad thing. I mean, if you want to live in the 1990s, you certainly are allowed to, but... And again, it's usually just that first boot up. Once you get past that, then it wouldn't really matter after that. It should boot up rather quickly. Now, we're not going to use this power supply again. We're going to use the one we're going to install. So I just wanted to make sure my RAM was okay, my CPU is okay, and I'm going to go put this back so I can find it the next time that we need it. It's kind of handy to have a little small form factor power supply as my tester. Doesn't take up as much room on the bench. And the cables aren't as long and tangly as a full-size power supply. So you might be seeing me using that a lot more in testing. It's also a lot lighter. So again, as we do this, this is also giving us time for the CPU to cool down. And then because we didn't use any thermal compound, we don't have any cleanup. It's just pop it off. It's warm. It's definitely warm. And then I'll keep these cables with this and put this back so the next time we need it, we'll have it. Super easy, barely an inconvenience. Now, if you're not like me and you don't have all these parts, you just build it. It'd probably be okay. All right, so that means that's going to go here. This and this, we'll just clear these out of the way for now. I have to keep coming up with more and more clever ways to put things, which would explain how the studio got to the condition it's in right now. And it does make it very difficult for us to finish the studio setup because there's too much in the way to move things around right now to make room so that things won't be in the way. Gotta love it. Let's see, we got our cooler. I think what I'll also do is take the AMD documentation out of the motherboard right now while I'm thinking about it. There's that. And our AMD Ryzen 5 sticker, we'll keep that with the Ryzen 5. We'll replace it with our Ryzen 9 sticker and documentation. And that little black card right there, there's one of those in here too. Keep all that together for the budget build so that nobody's getting shorted any parts, nobody's getting duplicate parts. And then nobody knows that anything was ever changed. But everything is still like new. Okay. Time for us to look at this case. So what drew me to the case is it just looks very practical for my needs. Like, I don't need a case window. If I've got one, it's fine. If I don't have one, I don't really care. Because I'm using this, this will become our new streaming computer. What I want is something powerful enough to do video editing if I want to edit on it. I don't have room for a secondary drive in here for storing my video files like I'm using on the main streamer. But now that we've got the latest, Synology NAS in place, we have so much space to copy it over the network is really what I should be doing anyway, because simply moving those files to another drive isn't a backup. That's a file move, not a file copy. A copy makes a duplication, so you have two of the same file. I'm trying to free up space on my C drive because I'm recording all these live videos. In case we lose internet or something happens, we have a live recorded version of it that I can always upload regardless of interruption to our internet service. So with the NAS, we have 5 drives. Well, we got 4, but we're adding a 5th one. They're 20 terabytes each. That's a total of 100 terabytes. And then we lose one of the drives in the mathematical equation that takes place. You lose the equivalent of one of your drives for backup reasons, for recovery reasons, I should say. So out of 100 terabytes, we'll have 80 terabytes available for use. And we're probably using 30 terabytes now. So that's going to buy us a lot of time. So when the C drive starts getting full on this, and it's a 2 terabyte drive, so by me putting OBS and Windows on it, if I want to put Microsoft Office on it, it might use 80 gigs out of 2,000 on this Orico drive. And so once I establish, I don't know, a terabyte of data files or recordings, rather, of my live streams, I just move them over to the NAS instead of to the local drive. Because what was happening is the local drive then got full. Then I had to move them to the NAS. So it's going to the NAS one way or another. And even though the NAS is not a backup, we're still moving the files. The files are now recoverable in the situation of, say, a drive failure, which is more than likely how most people lose their data, is drive failures. If something were to happen on the network, like we got a virus or somebody broke into the building and stole it, or there was a fire, if there was a big flooded the building, yeah, our data would be gone. It's way too much to back it up. It's, first of all, it goes back years, and that archive, a lot of that information isn't valid anymore. This technology evolves so quickly that the, how to fix error message with Windows Update number whatever on Windows 7, it's just not a video anybody cares to watch anymore. And when I say anybody, what I mean is not enough people would watch that in a year's time to make it worth keeping it. So it loses its appeal, and it can actually be dangerous if somebody doesn't realize they're watching a video from 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, and they try and make that application stick and realize that doesn't work anymore. A lot of what we talk about here is in our current state of affairs. The affairs change very quickly. And so the things that we used to do, we don't do anymore, and things we never did before, we do now. And if we keep the old way and the new way, people who don't know any better don't know there's a difference. I couldn't have predicted 5 years ago that I'm going to tell you don't watch this video in 5 years or 5 weeks. I never know when the change is coming. So if we lose all that older content in a worst case scenario, I'm fine with it. The things that are really critical and important to me, photos and memories and documents I've written, my book, that all definitely gets backed up to a secondary location. So it's not here in the building alone. It's also, could be a cloud service, it could be Google Drive, it could be Microsoft OneDrive, it could be Dropbox. Just a secondary location so I know I have access to it, worst case scenario, and hope I never need it. That's all. But not everything I have, I need. If you look in my closet and you said, do you wear all these clothes? No. So somebody came in and stole everything out of my closet, there'd be a few items I would want to replace, but most of it, they probably did me a favor. That's all I'm trying to say. All right, so I've never seen this case before. I really don't know much about it. It recently came out from Thermaltake. Magnetic sides, yes, please. Guess what's in here? See, I can use my wire cutters and I can use that to tie up other wires in the future. I'm keeping that. Let's see. Inside the box, this is the piece that you can swap out up here that can put the digital screen in. Or if you don't want to use the digital screen, you just don't use this. Just keep it with the case. We've got some zip ties. We have a motherboard speaker. We have screws. We have some Velcro cable ties. We have what appears to be a graphics card support, which we wouldn't use. I think that's what that is. I don't know. We've got some documentation. And then this box has a little cardboard piece. What is this? Oh, this is nice touch. It comes with a PCIe riser cable. And this is so, if you notice the way this case is designed, I'm just realizing some things right now, so bear with me for a second. You have these little grooves down here. This piece is there for graphics card support, which is really nice touch. We're not using a graphics card. I'm just going to use my capture card. However, there's no way for me to install my capture card straight onto the board because this is a dual chambered case. We got like 50% of the case here and 50% of the case over here. So when we put our motherboard in on this side, there's no way for us. Let me look at this again. We're going to put our motherboard in on this side of the case. And then we have to run that PCIe riser cable out of the PCIe slot. So then you see how these slots here are up and down. But our motherboard slots, if our motherboard goes in up and down, then our cards go in sideways. They go in horizontally. So we've got to figure out, well, you have to use that riser cable because one, we don't have case depth for any card to go in here, even if we wanted to. Two, we want to flip it so that it's vertical and we have the depth, which in this case is because we flipped it vertical, we're not dealing with the depth anymore. Now we're dealing with height. So the video card is going to go in lengthwise this way. So you can put a pretty big video card in there. Instead, we're going to put a little capture card in there, which is going to fit easy peasy, but we will have to use the PCIe riser cable regardless. On the top, we have a thumb screw, and this should make installing our liquid cooler real easy, I hope. Yeah, look at that. And on top of that, I see a couple screws right here. So this whole piece comes off and we can put the radiator onto this and then drop it into the case instead of trying to work within the confines of the case. That's good thinking. I also see, screws here on a bracket. I don't know what that's for yet. This bracket here is clearly going to hold our power supply right here. This is that power supply extension cable. So the power is going to come in here, run through this extension cable, and then plug into the back of our power supply inside of the case. Underneath, what do we got? Apparently some ventilation for the power supply to breathe out through the bottom of the case. Again, it's a good thought. Thermaltake hasn't always been so thoughtful. I have a thumb screw right here. What does this do? What? No way. Wow. I was not expecting that to just open up. I mean, I don't know why you'd need to get under there, but maybe there's a reason we don't know yet. I also like how this graphics card support right here has a rubber foam on it, so it's going to be an anti-vibration dampener as well as not mark up your video card as its fans are spinning and causing it to vibrate. I guess the only panel we haven't taken off is the front one. This gives us both USB 3 Type A's. Remember how I complain about so many cases only give you one? They're doing it right. Plus we have a Type C on there. This is everything I want in a case right here. I wish Thermaltake was paying me to make this video because I have nothing but compliments. I see what appears to be another filter right here was just playing with that. Is that just, how does that come out? Still trying to take this, figuring out this front lid here. How does that work? Don't know. Don't know yet. It looks like, well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you what it looks like, and we'll just see. I've got a screw, nothing here. There is a screw right here. See that? It's weird. I expect it to be the same on both sides. So let's take the screw out and see what happens. That one aside. This should just, what, come right off, right? It's got some latches here. Oh, I see. I think I see. I'll just pull. Yep. So it's got these little angled pieces that go in onto the case this way and then in, and then the screw, the one screw holds it in. And then I'm thinking this can lift up. Yep. Yeah, this is exactly what I thought. I thought that because I can see the little plastic pieces right here underneath my finger that are the same shape. These little L-shaped plastic pieces clearly means you have to go the opposite direction. And I couldn't do that if this was in place. Just reverse engineering. So if we lift up and then pull away, there it is. So we've got all the wires and everything still hooked up there, but I mean, that comes apart nice and easy. And while we've got it apart, I can just switch this out because we do want to put the LCD screen in, right? So that's just going to go just in here like so. And obviously you're going to want to put this back on first, because if this is already on, this gets in the way of removing this front piece because it no longer allows it to raise. And it prevents you from putting it back in because you have to get it up high and then drop it down. This piece must be out at that time. Now, while we've got it out, this is a great opportunity to put the LCD screen in, because you see these two holes, those are for screws that hold the LCD panel in. And this is an easy thing to get done, but just to give you an early look at what it's going to look like, we just slide that on like that. Then we can go to our LCD screen here, which I think is taped closed. The LCD screen adds about $90, which, you know, not terrible. And since it's no longer a budget build, you know, especially, this is not something I would put on a budget build, because you'd be spending $90 for a piece you don't need. And I like that Thermaltake gives you these options. There's your documentation. There's some foam. This is the USB cable to power and display the LCD screen. These are the two screws you need to secure it. They come with the LCD screen, not with the case. And then there's the screen. So if we take this piece here, line it with the holes. You see the two holes down here? There's two holes down here. That's how you know you're not putting it in upside down. And it's going to go in just like this. You can see there's a little USB slot right there for power and display control. And just set it down on a flat surface without, you know, be conscientious that you're not going to be scratching that brand new screen up. Use the screws that the screen included with the, obviously, the piece that the case included. And these are self-tapping screws, so you definitely don't want to over-tighten these. And you don't want to replace them with a different kind of screw, because the length of these screws is critical. If you lose these, you're like, I'll just use something else. it's very likely you will drive the screw in too far to the back of the circuit board, even so far as to crack the screen and damage the components inside. So I would not mess around with using anything other than the intended hardware it came with. Otherwise, you could just blow through 90 bucks, I guess, if you want to. And when we tighten this down, I just want it to be tight, but not over tightened. Just to the point where the screw feels like it's stopping. It doesn't want to go any further. Don't force it to go any further than that. I'm only using a couple of fingers to turn a screwdriver. I'm not using some big massive thing of leverage. And now that's installed, and it's not going anywhere. That is locked in. Now, it may also behoove me to go ahead and put that USB cable on now, because again, we're going to have restricted access once this is installed. So if we just grab this, all this is going to do is going to plug into a USB header on the board. And I don't know why we have two of them. This takes both USB 2s, and then it gives you a Type-C, two Type-Cs. So I know what one Type-C is for. You just pick one or the other, it doesn't matter, and just plug it right in there. And you can see if you're trying to do this while it's already in the case, it's going to be a little difficult, a little challenging. Oh, this is not a USB-C port. This is a micro USB port, micro USB. So it's trapezoidal shaped instead of, you know, the rectangular shape of USB-C. So it is micro USB, and it is USB 2.0. You know, one thing that kind of surprises me is they didn't put these on an angle so that when you're plugging the cable on, you know, this cable, once it's plugged in, it's immediately got to go this way. So you think that would be an L shape because there's no cutout or anything for the cable path to follow. So we'll just put that on now so we don't have to worry about it. And I'm guessing this other one is here for some other accessory. I'm not sure. So that doesn't necessarily have to be all the way up there. And then what we're going to do is feed this right through like so. That slides in. And you can see one of the challenges I have is when I go to slide this in, this cable is interfering with the case. And you think Thermaltake's design would have considered this, but that is not ideal. So I'm finding one flaw with this case so far. That is really disappointing. You know, an L-shaped connector would have solved this. So let me just take a look to see. Yeah, I don't know why they did that way. There doesn't appear to be any cable routing function, like should the cable go down? No. And if it goes this way, like it's in there like this, it's hitting the edge of the case. It's not letting me install. Interesting. It's almost like it won't let me install this with the wire on it, but then I'm afraid once I put this in, I can't get the wire on it then. See, it goes in real easy here. I have no idea how I'm supposed to get to that. Again, if it was an L-shaped connector at the end here, this would be a non-issue. But because it's so stiff and straight, it's not a very flexible cable to manipulate. So it's requiring me to use a little bit more force than I'm comfortable with, and I don't understand if these are the included cables and this is the right LCD screen for this case, why did Thermaltake design it like this? I don't get it. They already know the use case. They created it. So unless there's something I'm not getting, which is quite possible, it seems way more difficult than it should be. That is simply not going, it's just not happening. It's not going to go on. Let me just see if there's any difference between this connector and the other one. I think they're both the same, but let's try this one. You see the angle? I don't know if you can see the angle this is on. Because the cable is going this way, instead of coming in on an L bracket where it's coming in from the other side, and it's getting in its own way. So that is not a good design and such an easy fix. It's not like, I mean, did anybody ever put one of these together at Thermaltake? And if so, what am I doing wrong? What am I missing? And why is this not intuitive? And if this is the intended intuitive way, then why is it fighting me the whole time? Yeah, so if I'm struggling to get this on now, imagine when it's in the case, how much more difficult this would be. Okay, so that's finally gone in. And this cable, as I mentioned, it's got to be bent in. And when we do this, what's happening is these little latches that catch onto the case, this little nub sticking out is getting in the way, preventing us from installing it. Yeah, we're quite a ways away here. You see how far I've got to move this over. And it's not allowing it at all. Not at all. So I'm a little stuck. Let me see what the directions say. I shouldn't have to read instructions for this. It should be pretty simple. It says to put the screws in first. Put the panel, it says the metal panel is not included. Why did they say metal? It's plastic. So Thermaltake, because there is a metal panel option for some of their metal cases, this is a plastic case, and they don't say metal or plastic here. They just specifically say metal. So if you're a precise person like I am, you'd say, I think I have the wrong part. You see the metal panel they're displaying here doesn't have the lip on it that this front panel has. So the display on the instructions is showing a panel that's flat on both sides that screws into the front of the case. I can't imagine that they would sell another LCD kit specifically for this case, but maybe they do. Paul M says, check the box to see if they shipped it with an adapter. Well, we emptied the other box, right? Which box would come with the adapter, the case or the screen? Because the screen box only had the 2 screws in it. And we already went through this box. And I think I would have noticed a USB adapter in here. They're not exactly tiny. But I'm going to look again. I never did take the PCIe riser out, so no, it's just a PCIe riser. There's nothing else in there. Nope. 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 We can go back in. Documentation. More empty bags. What'd I do with the box? I threw it on the floor. Let's just check the box. There's nothing else in the box. just exactly what I showed you. I did drop a screw down here. I might as well pick it up. That's a little screw that the panel screws onto the case with, this piece. So, what to do? You think if it would have come with an adapter, it would have been in the bag with this piece. We can also look at the instructions that came with the case to identify what we're expecting in the parts. But I would think if that adapter was required, it would have been included with the screen, not with the case. Paul says this seems like a very poor design. I just can't imagine it, unless they sell a different version of the screen. And I bought the wrong version, but you know, that's really confusing to the consumer that you would have two identical screens, one that includes an adapter and one that doesn't. You see, if I disconnect the cable, see how that cable is, it's in the connector like this. It's not healthy. That's not a good stable connection. Even if I could make it fit, the case needs to fit between these two latches here. And this head of the plug is in the way. So if I remove this, just to give you an example, then I place this in, it goes in no problems, of course. We're in there. Or maybe not. Hold on a minute. Yeah, once it's lined up, it slides in, it locks in place. And then that screw I just picked up off the floor, that's going to go right there. So just to show you what it would look like, I'll put that screw in just so I don't drop it on the floor again. I know where that goes. And what's interesting is inside of the case, see if you can see it, right over there, there's a cutout for the cable. And if the cable was on a connector that was shaped like this, we could plug it in, right, and then have this part, essentially, if you got to picture it like this part would plug into the LCD screen, and then this part would go out inside of the case. That would solve the problem. But there is a cutout right there. I don't know if you guys can see that. Right where my finger is, right there. For room for a cable, but not this cable. That's just not fitting in there. I do like the way it looks. So I might have to do a little research on this. So for now, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. We're going to leave that just like it is. I'm going to wrap this back up, and it's a minor aesthetic thing. So the show must go on. So we will postpone solving this particular issue for another time. It'll require a little research. Nothing, when you're buying parts all from the same company, in my opinion, should require any research. Everything should fit intuitively, smoothly like a glove. You should not encounter any fitment issues. And that's why I think there must be something I'm missing. I must be doing something wrong. And if it's not intuitive, then I still put the blame on the manufacturer for not making it intuitive. This bracket here, this is our power supply bracket. There's a lot of places we can start here. I guess we can start by putting the motherboard in. So what I need to do is get our front port umbilicals here unwire tied. And you'll notice sometimes I throw wire ties away and sometimes I keep them. It kind of depends how thick they are. If they're good thick wire ties, I hold on to these, because if I need to tie something up temporarily, these are great. Sometimes in my world, temporarily could be months. So I might even have to cut it as necessary to keep it in place, keep it all together. And then when I go to install it months later, I might have cut the wire tie so short it's no longer usable for anything, and then I throw it away. So, but usually by then I'll have replaced it with more wire ties. So if they're good wire ties, well, I am absolutely removing them all before I'm done with the computer. I will use them in the process of building, reuse them, I mean to say. See, that's another good one. If they're cheap, flimsy ones, you know, they don't twist very well. They're just garbage. So let's pull all this out. Get it out of the way of our board. Install, that's our USB 3, our front board header. USB 3.1. Grab our board and place it in here. So my next question is, does the board go, well, I guess the board can only go one way, Carey. Gotta go this way. What's interesting is the placement of the board is quite awkward due to the power cable extension being right above it. So we have to kind of work at it on an angle. And then this power supply bracket is also something I'm trying to squeeze between these two pieces here on the case with a little tiny board that I don't really have any handhold on without the heatsink in place. So that is a little bit of a challenge, but any sort of mini ITX build will always present some challenges with the amount of space you have to work in. But the good news is the standoffs are recessed a little bit on the tips so that they do fall in. The motherboard will fall into the standoffs. So that motherboard is locked in right now. I don't know how well you can see that. And the screws then secure it in place. Some standoffs are completely smooth on top and the motherboard slides around. And maybe you get one standoff in the middle, like on a regular micro ATX or full ATX case, that holds the board in for you when you secure it. But these screws, these standoffs rather, not only hold the screws, but they also have that chamfered end so that the board can be locked in and held in place. That's a nice touch. So criticism where criticism is due, and compliments where compliments are due. This power cable being right here is really in the way. I suppose I could have taken this out first, and in retrospect, maybe I should have. So we've got a screw here and a screw there to take this power supply bracket out. And it looks like maybe some up front. No? I'm not sure how that comes out. I do see another wire tie that's got to be removed right here, though. So let's get that removed, because I definitely don't want to try and take the power supply bracket out if it's wire tied to our front port umbilical cables. Then I'm yanking on it and I could break the cables. And these are in there tight. Wow. Okay. Set that over here. Actually, let me get the screws that came with the case, because that's going to be that's going to contain rather our motherboard screws that we need to tighten the board down. What did I do with them? I set them over here. All right, let's just put all this over here. All right, I'll get rid of that. So they're giving us a lot of nylon zip ties. That's nice. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's probably a third of what I'll need, but that's okay. I'll take them. This little motherboard speaker, for those of you old school that like to hear a beep, most motherboards do have a place to hook that up if you want to use it. And this little bag where nothing is segregated out here, so they're all just slammed into one bag. So we only need the 4 screws for the motherboard, and what I have to do is figure out which of the 4 screws. We have an extra standoff. We have another extra standoff. I don't know why you would ever need 2 extra standoffs on what is only a mini ITX build. Mini ITX boards only have 4 screws. What I'm looking for is some identifier of what could be the motherboard mounting screws. Since the motherboard only takes 4 screws, is there any screw in here that there's only 4 of? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, it's not those. These are definitely fan screws. So we're not using, oh, that's a case screw, that's for the power supply. These flatheads, these might be for the motherboard. How many of those do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. Well, I suppose if there's 6 standoffs, there would be 6 matching screws. No, that goes to 6, 7. It's not those. 8. Those must be for, well, I don't know. I don't know what those are for. Again, these are all fans, 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 fans. Oh, we have a third motherboard standoff. More for fans. I don't know how many fans you need to put in a little case, but there you go. They prepare you. This is a regular case screw. That's another regular case screw. That's another regular case screw. Case screw. And we have these little teeny tiny, barely see it. I don't know what those are used for either. This is a socket for motherboard standoffs. If you convert that to put a standoff in there and then use a Phillips head screwdriver. I have a 5mm socket for this, but if you don't, they've included one. So you put this around the standoff and you use a Phillips head screwdriver to turn it. I mean, I'd rather use the right tools, but it's better than using a pair of pliers, I'll tell you that. You get all the metal shavings in your case. So I honestly don't know which screws I'm supposed to use for the board. And the way that they just willy-nilly throw it all in one bag, I don't know that I've got the right quantities. I mean, it just seems very random to me. And I don't know what the extra 3 standoffs are for. Like, that makes no sense to me. When would you ever need more than 4? I'm confused. So what's new? Well, I suppose I can take a standoff and one of these and just see what fits. Oh, that just falls inside. So it's definitely going to be a coarse thread. It could be just these standard case screws. That looks like they fit. On the other hand, those are too coarse. What about these flatheads? These are interesting to me. That feels more like a motherboard screw to me, but yeah, it looks like either one will do the job. But why did they give me 8 of these? What would these be used for? On a case this small, let's see how the documentation refers to these screws. It's bizarre. It's like they've given us enough screws for a micro or full-size ATX case. What else can you put in? The radiator is going to have all the screws it comes with. The fans, if you're going to add them, there's just 4 screws a piece for that. The power supply takes 4 standard power supply screws. And usually the power supplies include those, but so do the case. So then what are all these other screws for? Okay, it says in our documentation, it's got a picture of the screw. It says these are for the power supply. Very good. And then when you look at the motherboard, it shows use 4 of the flathead screws. Remember I said they look like motherboard screws, but why do we have 8 of them? There you go. Because there are 4 additional standoffs, I guess. Well, no, there's only 3. 3 extra standoffs with 4 extra screws that fit in the standoffs. I don't understand. But that's fine. Let's just go ahead and secure the board down. We know they fit, and it doesn't really matter if we use the power supply screws. But I intend to build it the way the manufacturer recommends. And then that way, if there are any problems, I know who to blame confidently. So mini ITX boards, they only use 4 screws. Universally, I'm not aware of any exception. I don't think it's possible. So the extra standoffs and the extra screws for those standoffs, I don't see how that's a thing. Trying to get the screw in the corner beneath this connector, it's in the way. But thankfully with my electric driver, I'm able to get it in there straight. The only other thing I'm wondering is, does this whole motherboard tray come out? Because if that came out and we could build on the tray and then slide the tray in, these other things wouldn't be in our way. Well, yeah, potentially the power supply bracket. And this, you can take 2 screws and remove it, this power cable, but it shouldn't be there. Like, that's just a bad location, in my opinion. They should have moved this all the way up to the top so you cleared some space. Because if you look at how close that is and where it's sitting above the board, so this is our PCI slot right here, right? But we can't use that this direction. We have to wrap it around and bring it to the other side. Maybe that's what the other screws are for, is to lock down the PCIe extension cable, the riser cable they call it. Because there are some standoffs on the other side of the board here. Specifically, there's 2. One here, and then I just noticed we have an M.2 slot in the back of the board as well, right here. If we want to add another NVMe drive, that would make that a little more complicated to get to, having to remove the PCIe riser cable first. But again, when you're dealing with mini ITX systems, you're always going to have to work around things. That's just the nature of the beast, getting them as small as they can get them, and at the same time being able to hold a full-size graphics card and a liquid cooler in a case this tiny. You can imagine there's going to be a tight fit. So I was supposed to check my phone about a half hour ago, wasn't I? Oh, Mortant sent us a $50 Amazon gift card. He said, here's $50 for the construction fund. Thank you, Thomas. Yeah, that was supposed to continue today, but our worker is not feeling well today. And we said, that's fine, take the day off. That's why you're not hearing all the construction in the background. But it's coming. Yeah, we likely will hear construction in the background tomorrow when we do our members only video. All right, before I damage this, so I continue to look for somewhere to put this. Oh gosh, what happened to Carey? He's in here somewhere. Search and rescue. Set that there precariously. I'm sure it'll be fine. All right, you're quickly running out of room. All right, so the riser cable, motherboard box. We still have to swap the NVMe drive out. I almost forget about that. I think for right now, you see, I know I need to put that riser cable on. Maybe I should do it while the screws are out, because that's not an option. Sometimes the riser cables are optional. So many cases allow you to put the video card in. Like on the streamer, the red and black streamer, the GAMEMAX case we're using now, the ability to put a graphics card in horizontally versus vertically is an option. Here, it's not an option. You have no choice. You have to run to the other side for anything you want to plug in if you want to use that PCIe. If you just want to run on onboard graphics, you don't have to use the PCIe slot on the board, and you don't have to put the riser cable in, only under that exception. And you know, if I turn this around the other way, you can see what I've got going on in here, but these are all of our spare parts documentation. We'll just keep it all in that box. Now, I've not had good luck getting these to work in the past, but I've also had issues getting them to fit. Having a case that includes this is a huge relief, because there are third parties on Amazon that sell PCIe riser cables, and I learned the hard way, most of them don't fit. It depends on the case manufacturer. So ideally, if your case allows you to have a PCIe riser like the Cougar cases, I've never been able to find a Cougar-made riser cable. And I've never found a video where anybody was able to make one fit without having to customize, mod it in a way. So if they're forced to use a third-party riser cable, don't assume they all fit, because they don't. So obviously this part plugs into the motherboard, and then this part where these two brass holes are, that's going to secure down against the back of the case here, and this will become our new PCIe slot here. So we're going to take the cover off of this, and I suppose just start by plugging it into the board. And I cannot emphasize how much this cable is in the way. Now I don't know. I guess it just overlaps. Let's open that latch up. This should lock in place. And then I suppose wraps around, which is kind of sloppy. Oh, there is what appears to be a little tie down here. Okay, I'm getting there. Let's see if that's what I think it is. We take this piece out right here. Now, how am I supposed to get to that? I suppose that's another reason why this lid comes off. Not just for mounting the radiator, but for getting down to this area here. I guess. It does look like it's riveted in, so I don't think this motherboard tray comes out, but I'll feel silly if it does. Maybe it does. Maybe I'm looking at it wrong. Yeah, I cannot get in that screw right there. So I definitely have to come in from the top. These all look like the same screw, so I don't think it matters if we put them back exactly where they came out. I appreciate when case manufacturers do that. You know, sometimes you'll have a screw, one's longer than the other, and you'll find out the hard way. If you don't put them back exactly where they came out, you'll find out why one was longer than the other. Okay, so now this should come right out. Once this is out, then I should be able to get to that screw. Then this piece would fold down, and then this would sit on top of it to lock it in place and keep it from getting snagged on anything. Remember, I'm doing this without any documentation. I'm just kind of analyzing logically how this would go together. And a good case design, like I said, it should be intuitive, especially to a technician. Okay. So that locks that little cable in like that. Just move these screws over so I don't lose them. So let's go to the lid, or the radiator support, is the case that we'll be using it. And then this piece here is going to go on so that this slot, this is our new graphics card slot now, and that's going to face upright vertically so the card can slide in lengthwise. Now, I don't know what screws we're supposed to use for this one. I would guess it's got to be these flat ones again. Then what do you do with the extra standoff screws? And you can see I barely have room to get in here for this. I should probably just test these to see if they're the right screws. Can't tell. This is riveted in, so that's not coming out. Are those the right screws? Yeah. Certainly appears to be. Just get that one started so it can hold it in place. Grab another one of these flat ones here. These flat top screws. Flat head screws. I don't know what you call it. Okay, so now we've moved our PCIe riser, or moved our PCIe slot from this side of the board facing this way to this back side of the board facing up and down now. And that way when we slide a card in, it's going to go in following these slots right here, up to 3 slots wide. So I just have the capture card, it's one slot, it's obviously only going to reach to the, because the slot is right up against the back of the tray, that means this slot right here, this first one, that's going to be where our capture card's going to go. I mean, you can't ask for that to be much easier other than the fact that, you do have a bunch of stuff in the way here. And you're going to experience almost always on a mini ITX build these kind of challenges with working around things. That's to be expected. If you don't want to do that, do not build a mini ITX computer. Just get yourself a mini PC. It's all taken care of for you. The other benefit of this coming out is we can go ahead and set our radiator and do all that here. And then we can drop that back in and secure it down instead of working backwards and up in this confined area here. So, and I'm just curious now that I've installed it, does it tell us to use those same screws for the riser cable? Oh, some of these screws are for 2.5-inch drive installation. I'm not quite sure where those go on this case yet. PCIe riser cable. It does show the option of installing the that little bracket that was in one of the bags is what they're calling it a VGA thickness tolerance. I think it's just a support. This will hold either a 240 or a 280 millimeter radiator up here. So we've got the big 280, right? Yeah, it's a 280. You definitely want the big one on the 9950X 3D chip, I'll tell you that. This is not clear to me with regards to the screws for the riser cable. I'm sure I use the right ones, and it's not really that important, but nonetheless. Instructions aren't real clear in that regard, but I worry sometimes over the engineering specs, like the type of screw, like these little ones right here, and what they might be used for, because they have a coarse thread. So a little screw like that wouldn't be used on a 2.5-inch drive. That's typically used on a 3.5-inch drive, but with the head being so small, it could easily slip through. I don't know what those are for. Typically, in the very front page of any new product, it'll say, here's what's in the box. And it shows these little guys. It says they're a number 5 by 32 6mm PCIe bracket, fan bracket. I'm just as baffled. The standoffs say they're only for the motherboard, so I don't know why. It says quantity 3. Obviously, they're not including the ones built on the case. They call that standoff socket a nut setter. It's a nut setter, okay? The speaker, they call that a buzzer. They got the name zip ties right, though. Let me give them that. Yeah, I don't know what that means. For use with PCIe bracket, fan bracket. They didn't mean the riser cable, did they? Because I would think yeah, they wouldn't get in the way. They don't have to be small. And I would feel like those are a little weak to be holding up a heavy graphics card, these little tiny ones. I'd feel much better using the ones I did. It works either way. Maybe they mean it's for this over here, which we don't even need that in this build, because the capture card's only about yay long. Okay, so I think all these screws can go back in the bag. I don't think we need any others. Too bad I separated them all out for nothing. So now they're all going to get jumbled up and mixed together again. I just don't want them laying on the counter. I've got the 4 screws for this lid sitting right here. I don't want to knock them off onto the floor. All right, well, put this back up here. Put this back in here. All right, you guys have any questions for me? I feel like, you know, we've already been 2 hours on this. I still have the cooler to go, but what we know right now and where we've prepped, this is going to take longer to put the parts in the case than a normal build because of my lack of familiarity with this design, which is uniquely Thermaltake. I've never seen a design to really compare this to, other than to say, you know, we work with what we know and then we adjust accordingly. I will put these away. We still have the NVMe to install, the power supply to install, and the cooler to install. And as you can imagine, that's easily another 2 to 3 hours from this point. So I think I should quit while I'm ahead. Everything's good. We haven't run into any real frustrations, a little confusion, a little hesitation. And it'll also give me time to kind of look up what's the deal with this USB cable that powers this screen and why is it not fitting correctly. I'll have to do a little research on this. If you guys find anything about it, please leave it in the comments section below, whether it's a another video, maybe somebody's built with this and they've already dealt with it. There's no sense in me reinventing the wheel. Or if it's a link to an article that maybe, I don't know, includes some pictures or something that might explain it, because I'm a bit dumbfounded. Usually, as I mentioned, when you're buying all the parts from the case manufacturer, it should all fit together like a glove, and these things should not happen. If what I did is, if I had bought a third-party screen because I was too cheap to buy the Thermaltake brand, these are the kind of problems I would expect to have. That would be on me. But when I'm paying $90 for a screen and $140 for a case, and that screen is intended to go into that case, well, I expect it to fit. I'm so unreasonable. But it's not a showstopper. I mean, I could build a whole computer without the screen ever hooked up. And I can even put the other panel back and return the screen and get my $90 back, or $95, $98, whatever it was after tax. But I really want the screen. So this is one reason you will not see many ITX builds on this channel. Maybe if I was 20 years younger, but the amount it cuts up my hands working around things, the frustration of it all, getting it all to fit, and moving a PCIe slot to the other side. I've never had to do that before, ever in my career. So this is a very specialized thing intended for gamers that want something portable. Not that it has to be used that way, but that's clearly who it was designed for, where practicality and price are not as important as being cool and portable and being able to have a high-end graphics card with the added cooling that you would need. So again, if you understand what you're buying, and this makes sense for you, then, or even if it doesn't make sense for you, if you're okay with understanding these limitations and the cost, regardless of your reasoning why, I'll tell you who it was intended for. And then suddenly it makes a lot more sense. David Graham says it's the right screen with the wrong connector. Get this Cherrying 2-pack mini USB extension cable, the 90-degree. Okay, well, I shouldn't have to. So I want to reach out to Thermaltake. Listen, Thermaltake just made a lot of money from us. You understand? And I'm not going to pay for Thermaltake's mistakes. I'm going to make sure Thermaltake is aware. You have a customer whose expectations were not met, and either the customer is an idiot and is doing something wrong, or Thermaltake is screwed up. And I want Thermaltake to make it right at their expense. I don't want to spend my money to fix their mistake. Be clear on it. I will if I have to, but I'm not going to do that first. I'm not going to be so impatient as to go and buy another cable, because Lord knows if that cable doesn't have all the connections in it that it needs for the USB signal, the screen isn't going to work properly. It might not. That'd be a hell of a way to find out, as you get a screen that turns on, but then nothing displays. So you've got to make sure you've got the right USB cable. It's not just a matter of the adapter or having that left angle on it. It's got to have the right number of wires inside of it. So it may not be that easy. It might be, but it may not be. And rather than go around in circles on this, this company made money from us. We have every right to reach out and get some clarification and give them an opportunity to either correct us, tell us what we're doing wrong, or make it right. We should not have to spend any more money on this. Dustin Fuller says, great stream as always, Carey and Mara. Thank you, Dustin. David Dix says, it looks like some people are getting a 90-degree and some are not getting it. So I'm wondering, if I go back and look at the Amazon page, do they sell it with and without and I just picked the wrong one? And either way, if I reach out to Thermaltake, look, a 90-degree adapter is cheap. They've made a lot of money from us. They should just drop one in the mail, say we apologize for the inconvenience, and that's that. For me to have to go and buy one, unacceptable.
I've always told you guys, if you buy something and it doesn't work, return it. Don't go online looking for help unless you're going online to the manufacturer or the company that took your money. They're the ones that need to provide you the answers, or return the product. Do not fix it yourself. I cannot emphasize this enough. You will void the warranty, you may damage the unit, and you'll be stuck with it, all because you were impatient and insistent and intolerant and stubborn. Send it back if it doesn't work. Or in this case, give the company a chance to respond and see what their response is. It's possible their response is, I'm not doing it right. But then that should have been made clear in the directions. So either way, I'm not taking responsibility for not doing it right. If it's not clear in the directions, how can I expect to be to know it? On the other hand, if there is no way to do it right without the right cable, then they need to be aware that they're shipping the wrong cable, and they need to at least correct it with us while they worry about the bigger scale, the bigger picture, with how they're going to deal with future sales. For all I know, they might already be there, and when I call them or email them, I'll probably email them. I'll probably get a response that they're already aware of this issue, and what's your address, and we'll get you the adapter. That's the response I'm expecting. So that'll give us another reason to to stop at this point, and maybe I will hear back between now and when we pick this back up. And it's a silly thing to be stuck with, but it's always going to be, not always, but if you're dealing with RGB and screens and all this other nonsense that's all purely aesthetics, like ornaments on a Christmas tree, it's those ornaments that are going to give you the problem. It's usually not the tree. So in this case, it's all the ornamental stuff. We only really have, ornamentally, we have this adapter, right? So the graphics card can sit up vertically for the view. And we have the screen, which is not necessary, which is why it's optional. And these are the things that are going to give us grief. I can tell you before you buy it, expect the grief. And if I'm wrong, then you'll be happy, no grief. But if I'm right, you were ready and prepared. Just try to be prepared, man. It's hard to know what you don't know, but it's also pretty easy to predict what you're most likely going to have problems with. And it's usually the stuff you didn't need to add that cost you more money you didn't need to spend, that gives you headaches and troubles you wouldn't have had. So if you're okay with it, knock yourself out. I didn't expect that when I buy everything from one company. It should all just fit. Okay. I think I've been clear on that. Hey, there's Mike's unboxing reviews and how-to. He says, just caught the live stream. What is the problem? First of all, welcome into Mike's unboxing. That's Mike. Did you build in the TR100, Mike? The problem is the LCD screen that we've installed comes with a rigid cable that does not bend. So we cannot plug the cable into it. It won't go in. If we try and plug the cable in first, then this piece won't go on. It hits the side of the case. It won't go in. The cable sits on an angle like inside of the socket. So it needs an L-shaped cable, some cable adapter that goes into the side of the LCD screen and then immediately comes out at 90 degrees into the case. But this one just shoots out one way, and there's no way for me to install it. It will not fit. So I don't know if you tried putting an LCD screen in. Did you get a different kind of a cable than I did that has an L shape on it? Or am I installing it wrong? Because it is Thermaltake screen and Thermaltake's case, and that is the screen that they say goes into this case. I don't know why they wouldn't give me what it needs to fit. So I'm a little upset about that. Mike's unboxing says, yeah, mine was tight, but it'll go in. I showed it in the review. I'm not comfortable with it, Mike. When I install that cable into the side of the screen, it is putting a bunch of pressure on the socket it's plugged into. That's not going to wear well over time. It's also going to make the system hard to work on. What I need is an L-shaped bracket. I need a bracket that'll go into the side of the screen this way, It's hard to show you on the camera. Then I need it to come out towards me. I can't have it keep going. It can't keep going this way. It's got to plug in and then immediately come towards me. So it goes inside the case. Then everything would fit fine. Mike says his was straight as well. That can't be right. I'm just telling you, there's no way Thermaltake would expect you to force that in. You would have had to have used some pretty significant brute force. And that means you're putting a lot of pressure on that cable and the socket that it's plugged into. That's not going to last over time. I promise you that's going to break. So there's no way that that's the intended design from Thermaltake. Thermaltake could easily solve this with an L-shaped end. So I'm going to reach out to Thermaltake and find out, because it's clearly not meant to go in with that cable. And just because you can force it, that cannot be the intended way. And if Thermaltake says, yeah, that's the intended way, I will never buy another Thermaltake product again, because that might as well be a guy in his garage monkeying around with what he's got laying around to make it fit. I expect better from Thermaltake. So I want to give them a chance to respond. And what I suspect is they're aware of the problem and they already have an L bracket or an L-shaped connector that they're going to send me. And if the response is, yeah, it's just going to be a tight fit and it's going to bend on the socket like that, no, I'm going to take the screen out and return it. I'll put the non-screen cover back in, and that'll be the last Thermaltake product I buy. Because I could do better on my own. I could go on AliExpress and buy a screen that'll fit better than this one will. So, I mean, we paid a lot of money for this. I don't expect that. He says, here's a link to my video where I struggle to get it in place. Okay, let's take a look at your video. We'll see if he sends me a copy. I'm sure he will. Let's just take a look. It's fair use, Mike. No, I'm sure he doesn't care. Where's my window capture? Probably not getting audio on this, but yeah, I don't see you putting it in though. Oh, here we go. Oh, I haven't taken that part out yet. What screws did you use down there? Oh, you used the power supply screws. Okay. Filters. I still don't see you putting the screen in. Oh, I don't even think you built in this, did you? You just looked at the case. You didn't put anything in it. Or did you? I don't see any parts going in there. You can talk about parts all day long, but putting them in, well, I mean, there's no motherboard, but now there is a board. So apparently you did build it, but I don't see anything coming off the front. There's no screen on there. It's almost like you were just test fitting it. I never saw you actually install it in the case. You showed the difficulty, but you didn't show it done, or I'm zipping through it too quickly. Oh, I'm glad it's not just me. He says, I actually use the screen from my Thermaltake Series 500. Yeah, no, it's the same screen. Dazzle555 says, is the screen for this case, Amazon shows a different case. It's supposed to work in numerous Thermaltake cases. David Graham says, Thermaltake has sent reviewers the I-shape cable I saw the vids. Does he mean L? Is that a lowercase L or an uppercase I? Type the letter capital I and then type the lowercase letter L
and look at them side by side. Because if you do it, you'll realize what you're typing. Mike's Unboxing says I had to hold it as it wouldn't go in without a fight. I can't get mine to go in, and I'm not comfortable enough to punch it that hard. If we're going to refer to the fight metaphor, the amount of force that it would require against that cable into that connector is not something I'm willing to do to a $90 screen and a $150 case. No, that's not acceptable. But I'm glad that it's not just me and that you struggled with it as well. That means there must be a left-angled connector that's not included. It must mean that. So I'm going to reach out to Thermaltake and see what they say. You have connections to Thermaltake I don't have, Mike. Why don't you reach out to yours if you don't mind and see what they tell you? I assume we're not the first ones to figure this out, and I have to assume Thermaltake did not intend for that to be forcefully installed. Peter VZ with a €2 super chat says hello. Thank you, Peter. Mike's Unboxing said, I did a stream and the video. Thermaltake wanted it back to send to a UK PC builder, and I was going to get it back later, but never did. Oh, okay, I see. That's a weird arrangement, but it happens. Sometimes PR companies might ask for their stuff back when you're done reviewing it. Honestly, if more companies did that, I wouldn't have as much stuff here. I'd be okay with it. Although most of the stuff here we bought. We don't get many items in for review for free, regardless. He says, yeah, the screen is a ripoff. This is Mike's Unboxing. I sort of fell out with Thermaltake for publicly saying it. So this is a prime example of what I'm telling my audience all the time. So long as we have the support of our viewers and we're not beholden to any corporation to cooperate with them, we are free to speak our minds with no consequences, neither positive nor negative, except to gain the appreciation from our viewers. So if Thermaltake has been so kind to you, as we've seen Mike there in the UK, now keep in mind, Mike is dealing with PR company in the UK. I'm dealing with a PR company in the United States. These are two different PR companies and two different operation procedures. When you deal with a large brand like Microsoft or Logitech or Intel, they have a global PR company, meaning that whoever I talk to would also be the same people Mike would talk to in the UK. But smaller companies can't afford a worldwide PR company. And that's why you hear the different rules. Like if somebody's in Canada versus somebody's in the UK versus somebody's in Germany versus, I'm here in the US, we're likely all dealing with different PR companies with different rules and processes because they're individually owned and operated by however the owner wants to operate. They don't tell each other what to do. As a result, I was jealous of Mike's relationship with Thermaltake, quite honestly, because they seem to be really sending him a lot of things that we have to buy. But then you just heard Mike say he might have had a falling out with them since he was honest with his disappointment with the screen. But they should appreciate that honesty, not punish him for it. They should say, thank you, that's valuable feedback. That's why we sent it to you for review. If in his review he has anything negative to say that in any way there's repercussions, then that's not a review anymore. That what they wanted was a commercial. So it's a commercial disguised as a review. And I appreciate deeply that Mike didn't sell out, that it was important for him to convey a sincere and raise awareness to what could be an improvement to make the product more valuable. And it should have only been taken as help. Companies will hire consultants and pay them tens of thousands of dollars for information that Mike just gave them for free. So if there's any punishment, there should be a reward. It should be thank you for helping to make our product better. And that reward is to look at the products, and if you can find areas for improvement, please let us know. Why would you be upset at that? Unless what you wanted was a commercial. And if you wanted a commercial, then it should have aired as a commercial, not as a review. And this is the struggle we have on YouTube right now, that viewers are watching commercials. Viewers will say things to me like,
Your videos go too long. Really? It's been a long time since you've been in school then. Did you ever tell your teacher, oh, these classes, they take too much time up? People, they wanna watch TikTok videos. And they want to doom scroll, and they want 3 minutes of junk information. In other words, there's no brain nutrition in these videos. They're not giving you any details. They're not giving you any substance. Look how I fixed my plumbing, and then half of that's an advertisement. I use this product. Okay, that's an ad. And almost every TikTok video is an advertisement. Almost every single one is advertising something. You're not getting a thorough review in a TikTok video. It ain't happening. So if that's what people want to watch, my generation skipped past commercials. This generation wants to watch commercials. It is the weirdest thing. It reminds me of the movie Demolition Man, where they're singing along to the top hits on the radio of old school commercial jingles that are in the top 10 of the hit list in the future. And you're like, this is ridiculous. It's, you know, you're going to come across sounding old like I am right now. Like, that's not music. There's no artistry to the Oscar Mayer jingle. That's not music. That's a commercial jingle. And it's funny because it's so absurd. And yet, here we are. That is scary that people want to watch commercials. From my perspective, did I just not wake up? Was this all one big dream where the world just got stupid? I don't understand it. Yeah, I'm definitely getting old, man. When the world doesn't make sense anymore, I'll tell you what. I don't think I've changed. Mark Leibowitz said, I sometimes go looking for useful info about products on YouTube, but 95% of the YouTube videos labeled as product reviews are unboxing videos at best, commercials, like you're saying, at worst. I don't mind if they say they're a commercial, but when they say they're a review and they're actually a commercial, that's where I have a problem. Full disclosure and transparency should always be number one. And if there's any reason not to give full disclosure and transparency, that's a red flag. There's no reason I can think of that would justify not being fully transparent, to be able to say, oh, I don't want to disclose it. I shouldn't have to. Well, then, why? Why does it matter? If you're doing everything on the up and up, why can't you assure people? What harm is there in that? What's the downside? The only downside I can see is you'd be lying, and that's why you won't do it. But when I say you, I'm referring to just a content creator who does that, not to any of you, obviously. At least, I hope it's obvious. Mike's Unboxing says, I used to have the Intel jingle as my Windows boot up sound. I need help. I think they make pills for that now, Mike. You knew what you were doing, and you set that up. If you like that tune, there's no problem with it. But if, on the other hand, you were promoting that, that'd be a different thing. What you do on your own is your business. So because we are user supported here, I want you to know that everything you see on my channel is honest and sincere. And there's no sort of hidden agenda on my videos whatsoever. If you don't know me by now, I'm going to tell you the good and the bad. And if I think it's going to be bad right out of the gate, I won't even accept the product for review. So I've got to assume it's going to be good, or I won't bother doing it. I'm not here to just put companies down. On the other hand, if there's a product I love, I still try to find something that could be better. Because I feel like if I'm not doing that, I'm not looking at both sides of the coin. I'm not being diplomatic and unbiased by saying, well, what if you just change your view from this angle over to this angle? Does it still seem as the same? And often it doesn't. There's often areas of improvement that I can suggest that aren't critical. Sometimes they are, but that I feel, in my opinion, would make the product more valuable to me and my customers. So I'm not just speaking on behalf of myself. I know what sells. I know what my customers want. I also know as a builder what I want. And if I can build a computer easier, faster, I can sell them with higher profit since they're not taking as much time, and I can build more of them in the same amount of time, being able to increase my profit. So it's got to be a good quality case. It's got to be easy to work on, easy to build in, easy to upgrade, and affordable and available, because if it's sold out, we can't get it. What's the point? So there's all these things that have to align. And when companies get it right, I will still try to find something to suggest for improvement, or I feel like I'm not doing my job. If it's all painted, all roses, and there's not a single weed in the garden, this very rarely is the world ever that perfect. I've seen very few products that I have no suggestion for improvement on, maybe one or two. And I feel bad about it. I feel like I suck at my job if I can't come up with anything bad to complain about it. But on the other hand, I also suck at my job if I can't find anything good to compliment on it, unless it's really offensive. Okay. That Kadyr's case, I don't know. I can't find a good thing to say about it. Not a good thing. It's one of the rare experiences where it's just, in my opinion, a complete waste of money. Overpriced pile of crap. Every Kadyr's case. Nothing personal. I don't know the people who made the company. I've never met them. I don't know anything about them. They might be the nicest people in the world. Their product sucks, in my opinion. Quality, value, ease of building in it, airflow. It's just all terrible all down the line. It's so rare that I have nothing positive to say. I got nothing. They're not even cheap. They're overpriced, they're cheaply built with cheap materials and bad paint jobs. Terrible airflow, just terrible. No cable management, nothing good. So that's an example. On the other hand, the little mini PC stuff, like you see these boxes over here, those sit over here for a reason. Those are my go-tos. I have a variety of systems to use at my disposal, and I will go back to those over and over again, so much so they're close by. Why? Because I really like them. I'm just really impressed by them. It doesn't mean I also don't have room for suggestions to improve it, and I let Minis Forum know. I say this is great. It'd be better if, how many times do I complain? You got to remove rubber feet to get to the screws, and I just keep hammering with that every single review. If they send me a unit that I have to get, rubber feet removed, I let them know again, and I let them know again. This is all unnecessary. You could have just put a hole in the rubber foot or moved the rubber foot over. Those screws should not be hidden. Are they listening? I don't know. But if I don't tell them, how would they know? So I'll keep telling them. They keep doing it. And we've seen some, like the most recent Minis Forum, apparently it's working because we didn't have that problem. We'll see as we go forward. But they don't have any exemptions from my criticisms. Just because I like their company doesn't mean everything they make is golden. And if there's room for improvement, I'm going to tell them. And if that burns my relationship with them, then we never really had a fair relationship to begin with. I was being used. If that's what a company does to me, then they're using me. They're getting what they want instead of, they're deceitfully telling me they want a review when what they really want is a commercial. That means they lied to me and our whole relationship was built on a lie. And if that's how they're going to be, then the breakup is mutual. At that point, we'll use our own funds, we'll buy the stuff, and we're going to review it anyway. And we don't need their permission. That's what we did with Ugreen. Mike, Ugreen sent them a bunch of stuff. They wouldn't send us a thing. They told us we couldn't live stream it. They told Mike, do what you want. Mike's PR company with Ugreen is in the UK. Our PR company with Ugreen is in the US. Two different policies. And so we just said, fine, don't send us the unit. We're going to review it anyway. Bought it from Amazon, reviewed it, found it doesn't have a guest account. It's without a guest account, I can't use it. It's a completely worthless box. Doesn't matter what else it can do. It doesn't meet my needs or my client's needs. What am I supposed to do? Sit on it in the hopes someday they'll have a software update that adds the guest account? They might. but I'm not sitting on $600 worth of a NAS I can't use. We returned it. Now imagine if they sent that to us for free and we had to show them that video before we were allowed to show it to you. Do you think they would have let us talk about the guest account? And then what other YouTube channels that have reviewed the Ugreen mention the guest account? Now, was it omission because it doesn't matter to them because they don't use it the way we use it? Or did Ugreen say you can't say that? So Mike has made it clear that he was free to say what he wanted. I don't know if he checked the guest account thing out, but that's a deal breaker for me. That's the only NAS in the entire market, from Synology to Asus, Store, TerraMaster, UNAP. Guest account is standard. How would you not have that? Mike's Unboxing said it's almost midnight there in the UK. Time for bed. Right on. Well, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for stopping in, Mike. Appreciate your feedback. He says, our channel is mostly sincere, partly sarcastic or ironic. Well, that's what we love about it. Never change. Mark Leibowitz said the downside to full disclosure in a purported review video is that you might have to actually put some brain power and effort behind the review, and you might not get paid by the product maker. Well, we don't see that as a downside. We see that as an upside. If it's something you don't want to do, why are you doing it? You know, you want to be a content creator, but you don't want to create content. Why are you a content creator? If you're a dog catcher, but you're deathly afraid of dogs and dog bites, why are you a dog catcher? That's just not the right line of work for you. You know, my big complaint is police officers that want to complain about, you know, officer safety. Being a police officer is not a job that involves safety. You're in the wrong line of work, in my opinion. Maybe get a safer job. Telling people you're too close to me, like that's not a law. Well, it isn't in most places. Why? Well, you're too close to me. It's officer safety. Can you imagine a soldier on a battlefield going to the enemy? You need to move away for soldier safety. This gun is dangerous. Can you make this gun safer? It's a gun. Anyway, the world is changing. That's going to wrap it up for me for today. Thank you to Mara, of course, for all the work she does in the background, the amazing thumbnail. We'll be back to do some more with this after we follow up with Thermaltake and we'll share with you their response. And thanks, of course, to our friend Buster. Thank you to Lugrinia for the PayPal contribution. Thank you to Mortant. It's Mortant, wasn't it? For the Amazon gift card. Yeah. And for all of your super chats and of course all of your memberships, we thank you. Welcome in new members, welcoming back some members. We're happy to have you here. Thank you for supporting us for all those reasons. I keep talking about that financial independence, so we're free and clear to speak, free and clear. And if I go back over to my super chat history, I'll say a shout out and a thank you to Peter joining us from the Netherlands. Welcome back to David Dix at Rock City PC, renewed his membership. Ryan Monroe, I missed this one, $4.99. He says, I have not built since 2016. Upgrading this year would be much of an improvement in your opinion. Oh, would be how much of an improvement? I've been busy in DPT school. I don't know what DPT is. I don't know what you have now. I don't know how you're using it, so therefore I couldn't tell you if you should upgrade, would it be worth it, and what you should upgrade to. What are the shortcomings that you're having now, or are there any? Is it just because time has passed, you feel like you should, when you don't really have any reason? If you join us in our forums at CareyHolzman.boards.net, it's a great place to leave messages like this in our forum, and then you can get responses from me and other viewers who have their opinions as well. And it also gives us the ability to go back and forth to better understanding compared to what, right? You have to tell us what you have and how you use it. And if it's coming up short for you, in what way, what your budget would be, what you'd be looking to build and why, so we can guide you. So sometimes that's not voluntarily disclosed and we have to sort of interrogate you to get that information in order to provide you the answer you're looking for. So those forums are all free. They're open 24/7. CareyHolzman.boards.net would be where I would recommend you go. Because we do want to help you, but we'd have to go back and forth a little bit to better understand your question. Patrick Chi, thank you for your $6 super chat. He says, I purposely bought Windows 11 Pro for my AMD Ryzen 7 7700X desktop, as my previous computers had Pro. I know I probably don't need Pro, but I got it free with Windows 10. You don't have to ask my permission. You could buy it for any reason you want it. But thank you for the super chat. Thank you to Planet Cryos. Thank you to Charlie Purdy for renewing his membership, along with Tom Jackson and Jose Lopez and our good friend Mark Gaines for your super chats. And welcome back Katrina H to our membership, and welcome in Paul Vircher. We're glad to have you here. And hopefully we'll continue to grow this channel with members. The benefit of membership is you get to chat with me live. You get access to thousands of videos going back to 2008 or 2009 in our archive. Free viewers can go back up to 12 months. Free viewers cannot live interact with us, and free viewers cannot watch or participate in members only Monday videos. Those are completely locked in for members only, for both viewing the video and interacting. And tomorrow is Monday. So that means we're back tomorrow at 1 o'clock for just members. Those videos are never, ever made public. So if you want to see every Monday video you've ever missed as a free viewer, with your monthly membership, you have access to go back and look at those. Some are diagnostic and repairs, a lot of behind the scenes, and what's going on in the background with some of the vendors we're working with, where we can disclose information we would not disclose publicly. And we do that on private members only videos. So if you want to be a part of that, and you want a bigger picture of the channel, as well as support us, these are all benefits of membership. So we do appreciate each and every one of you for enabling us to make this possible. A shout out to Planet Cryos, who has his own YouTube channel. He popped in and said hello. Check out his YouTube channel, Planet Cryos. A shout out to Mike's Unboxing, Reviews, and How-Tos, who does very similar videos to our own, based in England. And be sure and check his channel out if you haven't. I think if you enjoy my content, these gentlemen also make content you would equally enjoy, if not enjoy more so. All right, that's going to wrap it up for me for today. A shout out once again to our friends over at Sedd Keys. Once again, the discount links, but the links and the discount codes are in the video description below. And if you want to email us just one last time, our email address is right here on the screen. We're happy to hear from any and all of you. Be sure you type the email address correctly, or we're not going to get your email. So if you don't get a response within 24 hours after sending an email, it's likely we never got it. You probably sent it somewhere else. Watch the order of the letters. People transpose stuff all the time, and we're always happy to hear from you. So never hesitate to reach out for any reason. Always happy to hear from you. On behalf of Mara and myself, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you all, we'll see members tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Until then, bye for now.